to get a win. Oklahoma State at one point was kind of in that mode of needing a win. Well, now all of a sudden they're red hot. Ollie Gordon II. We mentioned his unbelievable streak. Dave Hunsiker, voice of Oklahoma State, joins us on 365 Sports. Dave, is it Ollie Gordon II? Is that what been the, I guess you could say, the switch to turn this team on, or what?
Well, it's been collective. The offensive line is healthier and improved. They settled on a quarterback, Alan Bowman, which I think probably helped stabilize everything offensively. And they've been, despite a lot of injuries at receiver, they've held up. So Ollie is definitely the guy, but there's been a lot of work done at other spots offensively to help allow him to have the success he's had. So he's been the leader, but there's been a lot of other people in supporting roles.
Did Mike Gundy kind of, I mean, he's never going to oversell or undersell anything, but was he prepared for early season growing pains, because they didn't knowing that if they got through it, that they might be pretty good?
You know, I think it's for everybody. It's a feeling out process, trying to figure out, you know, how you manage players in the portal. They had basically 12 new players that they brought in out of the portal. They lost 17, so it was a little tricky, but I think it's just a feeling out process. You're trying to keep everybody happy. You've brought in a new quarterback. You had one left over, Garrett Rangel, who started 4 games last year that you really like. You wanted to give him a chance. You know, Coach's son, Gunner, had a really good preseason camp, so he felt like he needed to give him a chance. And then, there's definitely a feeling out process. And you had 3 running backs, too, for that matter. 2 other running backs they really liked, Jaden Nixon and Elijah Collins, who came from Michigan State. So I think it took them time to sort things out, figure out who the right guys were to play. And then I think the biggest thing was to settle on offense, what they wanted to do rushing the football and they went more to a power run game.
What has impressed you about the steady hand in Alan Bowman? He doesn't have like the crazy 500 yards and 4 touchdowns or anything like that, but he has a couple scores. He protects the football for the most part. It seems to be a steady hand there. What have you thought about his play thus far?
Oh, he's older. He's mature. He doesn't try to take things that aren't available. He just sort of understands where he is and what he is and lives in that world. And, you know, he's already graduated from college, and so I think he spends about all his time watching video when he's not at practice. And again, there's just and when you're running the ball like that, there's so many offshoots off of it. You know, the tight end has been far more involved in the passing game at Oklahoma State than what it's been in recent years, and they're using really a true tight end in the true sense. A lot more this year than they have in the past. The running backs are involved more in the passing game than they've been in the past. So again, there's sort of a collective thing going on here. You know, when you run the ball, teams like Cincinnati try to overplay the run, then you should be able to throw it. And, you know, they've been able to take, again, they're only averaging about 10.5 yards per catch, which is one of the lowest in college football, but it really hasn't mattered. And so they do their best not to turn it over, don't force things. They'll take a few shots down the field, but not a lot. But the home run plays have come from Ollie Gordon rushing the ball.
I saw this quote from Casey Dunn, the offensive coordinator. I kind of joke, but it's like trying to tackle a giraffe. He's got a long guy. His limbs are everywhere. He's still very powerful. If you stand behind him in practice, there's freaking muscles everywhere. I hate saying awkward, but he's got an awkwardness that is a positive. Is that kind of what you see too, Dave?
Yeah, I would. And, you know, he's very diligent in terms of how he goes about his business. And, you know, there's been a lot of there's a great camaraderie across the board offensively. I think there's been a lot of things in sync with the offensive line. It's just sort of progressed, but yeah, and downhill is the way to go now. There's no doubt. That's the world in which they really live is going downhill. And, you know, when they run the ball, it's between the guards.
Dave, how much malaise is there? I don't know, malaise is not the right word, or is it a bummer that this is the last Bedlam we may see for the foreseeable future?
Well, there is some for sure, and I think the bigger emotion is wanting to win because this is the last one for the foreseeable future. Could be a bowl game or something that gets snuck into the equation at some point down the line. I think that's the biggest thing here is a desire to win this one because it's the last one for who knows how long. we've had 2 years to get ready for this. We've known this day was coming. So I don't know that I don't know that there's any sadness necessarily. There's probably going to be some, but I think that time has probably come and gone. Now it's more of just a hunger to win this game to make sure you've got the last win in the series before it goes into the dark for quite a while.
Dave, just how much excitement do you already feel for it? I mean, the only way this could be setting up better is if, both teams were undefeated, but I mean, they're both right there in the thick of the Big 12 title race. I know Oklahoma's coming off with a loss, but there's some jockeying to be done, plus bragging rights for, as you both mentioned, the foreseeable future. Do you already feel that sense of buzz around the state here on a Monday for what's coming up on Saturday?
Well, it's a lot better than it would have been a month ago when Oklahoma State was stumbling. Yep. I mean, now the game does have conference championship game implications. It does have, on a limited basis, some national ramifications. That was not going to be the case a month ago. So it's in a much different position than what it was. Is it as prominent nationally as it's been in most other years? No, because you've had a lot of these games in the recent history, especially you go back to 2016, 2017, 2015, and a bunch of years in there where both teams were ranked in the top 10, 2021, I believe, top 10 for both teams, sometimes even higher. And there was a lot on the line, both bragging rights-wise and Big 12 race-wise, and then a third piece of it, the national part of it. So it's not quite at that level in terms of that, but it's a lot more that way than it was going to be a month ago.
Earlier, we asked about Mike Gundy, and did he almost slow play this team? The NIL, the transfer portal, we know he's not a big fan of it, but he just kind of kept doing what he does. How much has he discussed that of late, or is once he's in the season, it's all about just the season?
No, he knows. I mean, he recognizes they're feeling their way along in this portal, and they're, he's realized that it's just part of life now, and you have to adapt it and have to figure out how you're going to use it and make it work and how to build a team with it. So he's a lot more amenable to it than he was, that's for sure. But I think he also is just like a lot of other coaches learning on the fly about, hey, how do you manage a team like this? One thing he has talked a lot about is that they got back from Iowa State and he said, guys, we don't have any energy. We don't have any juice. And he kind of looked around the locker room before the game. Everybody's on their phone, kind of doing their own thing. And they got some of the guys together and said, hey, what do you want? We need to completely crank up the atmosphere in the locker room and get everybody together and get everybody on the same page and get everybody going. And that's played some role in this. I mean, just the entire atmosphere on game day around the locker room, sort of the mood of the team has changed. It's not that it was bad. It was just, I think, part of what happens when you have a lot of new players blending with a team that has a lot of young players in prominent roles. And so you have guys don't know each other. And so they've really expedited that process. And I think it's mattered a lot.
Dave Hunsiker, voice of Oklahoma State, with us on 365 Sports. They had the 7-point win after the disaster. Not disaster. Iowa State's pretty good. Losing to Iowa State, 7-point win against Kansas. How much the way they bounce back to get wins like that? Because in the Big 12, we see teams that go 9-3 one year and then 4-8 the next because they don't get the close wins. How critical were those?
Oh, they were huge. The Kansas State game, your season's on the line. You'd lost back-to-back games, South Alabama and Iowa State, and not looked great doing it, although there were some signs of progress at Iowa State. And K-State was, still sort of a darling at that time because they won the Big 12 last year. They demolished Oklahoma State in Manhattan 48-0 last season. So there was part of that was motivating Oklahoma State. But in K-State's still a darling, but they it was a big win to kind of knock them off because that didn't look like a good matchup on paper, but it turned out that it was better than they thought. And then you play a Kansas team that was really hot coming in and had rushed the football at will on most of the teams they'd played. And and Kansas had a really, really hard time rushing the football against Oklahoma State. I don't think they got to 100 yards if my memory serves me correctly. So those were, you not only were winning games, but you were doing so in a way that it was easy to see the progress you'd made. It wasn't smoke and mirrors. You could see tangible progress being made. And that I think that fueled them as much as anything.
Mike Gundy kind of gets compared a little bit to, I may have been guilty of doing this, but like Dabo Swinney and that coaches who liked it better the old way. Dabo Swinney hasn't adapted to the new way yet. Mike seems to have done that, though. I mean, maybe begrudgingly at first, but, he's going to be a dude who's set in his ways. But how much does it speak that he was able to go, all right, look, the transfer portal's here. I could not like it as much as I don't like it, but I've got to go shop at that store because everyone else around me is.
I think there's some of that for sure. I think Mike doesn't get nearly enough credit for being willing to change. May not have been with the portal, but look what they did in the offseason. They completely overhauled their run game. Now, they were still doing some of the old stuff early, but now it's gap scheme, it's power run game. It's worked because they felt like they needed to do that against the three-man front. Defensively, they overhauled that. They went away from a four-man front. They went to an Iowa State style, if you will, three-man front defense, with a man in the middle in the secondary and playing that way. It felt like they needed to adapt. Another thing they adapted is they spent a ton of time and continue to spend a ton of time working on defending fourth downs. And as a result, they've had big stop after big stop in terms of fourth down defense. They had big stops against K-State. They had big stops against Kansas. Opponents are 3 of 16 on fourth down against Oklahoma State. It's really sexy right now for everybody to act like they're a riverboat gambler and go for fourth downs. If you do that against Oklahoma State, they're probably one of the few teams that's practiced it, because he talked about how defensive players aren't used to defending the chains. Well, they do it here, and the teams that have tried it have found out there's a plan for this here in terms of defending fourth downs. So that's another thing he's innovated. He doesn't get enough credit because he doesn't usually brag about himself. He just does his thing. But, you've had some major changes on offense and defense. You've embraced a whole new philosophy with fourth down on defense, and it's all working. So, that he gets a lot of publicity when he sort of goes against the flow, but I don't think he gets enough credit, not even close, for the things that he's willing to change and make drastic changes when he sees the need. And he's always done that, and this year there's been a ton of that.
Dave, when it comes to this matchup with Oklahoma, what stands out to you as far as maybe some questions you have still about Oklahoma State, or things that you could look at as perhaps, I don't know if weaknesses is the right word, but how do you sort of view this matchup from the Oklahoma State point of view of what they need to get done and maybe what they're, I guess, maybe a little bit worried about?
Well, I think Oklahoma will do what Cincinnati did, and they're going to dare you to throw it. And your receivers are going to have to win. Oklahoma State, though, is really depleted at receiver right now. So that's a concern. Leon Johnson is a Division III transfer that played in a prominent role for the first time Saturday night against Cincinnati, and he had a huge game. They wanted to redshirt him because they wanted him to have another year of in the weight room and just more years to refine his skills, but now they're forced into playing him. So he'll have to be good. So you'll need to be able to win at wide receiver so that Oklahoma can't overplay the run. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with an extra guy in the box, and that'll make things a little trickier. Defensively, when Oklahoma State has struggled, they've given up big plays in the passing game. I think they're facing by far the most explosive team throwing it that they've seen up to this point. So the secondary will have to hold up. And you've got a lot of young guys back there. So that's going to be the key. I think you need to be able to make sure you can throw it enough to force Oklahoma to respect the pass, and then defensively you can't give up the home run pass plays, which has been that's been a problem all year.
Dave, it's a heck of a run, man. The Big 12, there is nobody left that's undefeated after Texas lost to OU, and of course then Oklahoma loses to Kansas. It's chaos. I know Oklahoma State's right in the middle of that, but is it kind of for you to look at it? Well, this is the way it's supposed to be, with almost elimination games coming up the next 2 or 3 weeks.
It's what can happen when everybody doesn't play each other.
No, that's
because
right.
You don't have things getting settled on the field, and you don't look at the schedule down the line and say, well, that will take care of itself, because those two haven't played each other. Now, because you don't have the round robin schedule, you look at it and say, well, I don't know how that's going to get settled, because they don't play each other. So that's one of the things that makes it even muddier is now you can have a couple of teams that catch a weaker schedule, and Oklahoma State's one of them. I mean, their conference schedule is probably, it's at the beginning of the season, we thought it was a really weak conference schedule. It turned out to be stronger than we would have thought. But, if you happen to catch a weak schedule and avoid some of the big boys, then you could be in a position where, you're right there tied with, that other team that you've not played and won't play. So that makes sorting this out a lot trickier. And I think that's why we're so congested, is that you don't have teams playing each other and beating each other and kind of setting up a natural pecking order. When you don't play each other, that doesn't happen.
Dave, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Have fun. I know you will. Bedlam Saturday, Oklahoma State and OU. Oklahoma coming off the loss to Kansas. And I think that